premier content creates the classic risk of what we refer to as vertical foreclosure. The merged firm would have both the incentive and the ability to put rivals at a disadvantage. It could withhold marquee titles, it could raise licensing fees, it could favor its own content with recommendations. On a platform of Netflix's size and reach, even a small set of changes in visibility could impact competition. This deal also has potential downstream implications for movie theaters. Now, Warner Brothers is a central force in theatrical distribution, while Netflix is generally favored streaming over theatrical releases. This consolidation would increase incentives to divert major releases away from theaters to streaming only on Netflix. That would reduce consumer choice and threaten the viability of movie theaters. Now, these risks are amplified by data ownership. Netflix already, due to its innovation and investments in this area, has unmatched insight into viewer behavior. Combining that with the content library of Warner Brothers could further entrench Netflix's dominance and raise barriers to entry, make it harder for nascent competitors to enter the market and compete effectively. Antitrust cases are often decided on the basis of market definition, how you define the market in which the merged entity would make its appearance makes a big difference. In a subscription video on demand market, if it were defined in that way, the combined firm would likely exceed the 30% market share threshold, thus triggering a presumption of illegality established by the Supreme Court in longstanding precedent, the United States versus Philadelphia National Bank. Additionally, this merger does not occur in a vacuum. It doesn't occur in isolation. Netflix recently secured an exclusive multi-year agreement with Sony Pictures. This arrangement, announced really just in the last couple of weeks, suggests a broader strategy to consolidate even more premium content behind Netflix's own paywall. Even the uncertainties surrounding this merger risks weakening Warner Brothers as a strong, independent competitor to Netflix, which it currently is. So all told, one might say that Netflix seeks to become the one platform to rule them all, or at least to exercise a significant amount of market dominance. The merger raises numerous antitrust concerns. In a nutshell, consolidating both production and distribution power. If approved, the merger will likely shape in a really significant way how Americans access movies and series for many decades to come. I look forward to hearing the testimony from our witnesses, and Ranking Member Booker, we will now proceed to you and hear your opening statement.
I'm really grateful for Chair Lee for organizing this hearing in partnership with my team. We both are coming at this with a lot of bipartisan accord that we have a real crisis in our nation right now with a level of corporate concentration like has not been seen for generations, going all the way back to the trust-busting days of Roosevelt. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that to my left is Amy Klobuchar, who literally wrote the book on antitrust enforcement, and having her leadership here and continued focus is extraordinary, and I'm grateful to serve in between both of these individuals, and just feel very grateful today. I want to thank Mr. Sarandos and Mr. Campbell for coming here. It is not fun often to testify before Congress. Sometimes I wonder if it ranks higher than a visit to the proctologist or to the dentist. I'm not sure, but it means a lot that you all are here.
Proctologists and dentists everywhere are outraged by that statement.
I am sure I will get letters. I'm sure I will get letters. We're going to examine a lot of the specific facts of this proposed Warner Brothers Netflix merger, but I do want to say very specifically that there is an absence. I believe that this sale of Warner Brothers to any competitor could have serious consequences for consumers and for the television and film industry. And the absence of not having Paramount Skydance here who has made a hostile takeover is frustrating. I invited David Ellison, Chair and CEO of Paramount Skydance, to appear today. Mr. Ellison declined, stating that Paramount, quote, does not believe it would be useful or helpful for them to participate as a witness because their offer had been rejected. I'd like to just ask for unanimous consent for this letter to be submitted into the record. I do want to thank Mr. Ellison, though, for meeting with me and I know other senators in person to answer our questions. It was actually a very fruitful conversation. It's unfortunate it wasn't in public. Paramount's still a player here. They have made a hostile bid of $108 billion. And for that very reason, I again just want to state that their participation would be really relevant to this hearing. And it would be, in fact, be helpful for Congress to question them about this effort, especially given the serious concerns that I have regarding President Trump's involvement in the deal and the allegations of political favoritism. We're in an unprecedented time where we're seeing executive power being exercised in a way that Congress should be checking. We have seen allegations that Paramount has promised the president to make sweeping changes to CNN after Trump said that he thinks, quote, the people that have run CNN for the last long period of time are a disgrace. I think that it's imperative that CNN be sold, end quote. Days after the Netflix Warner Brothers deal was announced, President Trump purchased $2 million in stocks and bonds in both Netflix and Warner Brothers. I think it's outrageous for any senator, any House member, or for the president or vice president for that matter, to be trading in individual stocks when they have extraordinary insider information and influence over policies that move corporate power. This is, again, another example of the corruption that is cancerously attacking our democracy. President Trump is using government power to reward allies, punish perceived enemies, and enable private enrichment at rates we have not seen before. While ordinary Americans are left paying higher prices, consumers are suffering, and money is siphoned off to the top, leaving families and workers worse off. And aside from the concerns of this administration's exploitation of antitrust enforcement, the acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery by either Netflix or Paramount or any other competitor would result in concerning consolidation of a sector of our economy that has already been putting a squeeze on consumers and artists. Let's be clear, the sale of Warner Brothers to either Netflix or Paramount would have a significant impact on tens of thousands of Americans that work in the entertainment industry and American consumers. I've been hearing from people throughout this industry concerns, fears, worries, legitimate folks that don't have a political axe to grind who are very concerned about the matters we're discussing today and how they're going to impact their lives. So this is not an either-or situation. With either merger, another corporation will gain significant control over what we see, what we hear, and the news we consume. The acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery by either Netflix or Paramount or any other competitor would result in consolidation of a sector of our economy that is already seeing significant consolidation. It's something that we should be talking about and we should be asking the serious questions. With either merger, another corporation will have that control, increased control over what we see, what we hear, and what news we consume. Now, let's be clear. I was born in 1969. My father made me sit down and watch Star Trek and watch Nichelle Nichols, one of the first African-American women to star in a show like that. Made me watch movies like In the Heat of the Night. So much of our culture was shaped by extraordinary artists who showed diverse voices, who dreamed and saw a future that seemed almost impossible, that in fact there'd be a black senator sitting right now as a ranking member of this kind of committee. Art matters. Art is vital. With a merger like this, it has real concerns about art, about culture, about the voices of Americans, about the moral imagination of a nation. For years, workers, creators, and consumers have been told that consolidation in media and streaming would mean more choice, more unique stories, lower prices. I don't think we've seen that. What we have seen with each merger is higher subscription costs, fewer streaming options, shrinking creative opportunities. I've heard them from artists that I know personally. They speak of lower pay and growing instability for workers across the industry. Many voices that felt that just a decade ago they had chances to bring their art to life now worry that those options are dwindling. Even now, pre-merger, a small number of streaming companies control a lot, from content production to distribution and to the actual platforms through which consumers access entertainment. We are seeing a lot of vertical integration. We know Netflix power. I am a subscriber. I watch Netflix with probably hours I don't want to confess here in an open hearing and put on the record, but it is the dominant streaming platform of my household as well as in our nation. And that's just domestically. It has an extraordinary global scale and reach. Worldwide, they have over 325 million consumers, with their closest competitor, Disney Plus, with half of that at 130 million subscribers worldwide. Warner Brothers controls one of the most valuable and largest content libraries in the world, including HBO, Harry Potter, CNN, and for me, one of my favorite platforms is DC Comics. And the fact is that Netflix Warner Brothers transaction would consolidate the largest distribution platforms with one of the largest content producers, and that should raise questions that Americans should have answered. I have concerns about Netflix getting more power over consumers and leaving fewer alternatives and streaming platforms. I have concerns about startups and competition, and of course, as I've already stated, about the impact on artists and artistry in our country. I am angry about our antitrust laws, which have been ignored by Democrats and Republicans in the White House. I believe that we are now seeing consolidation that is screwing Americans from our farms to pharma. We are in a crisis in America. Our antitrust laws are designed to ensure that independent studios, smaller streaming services, and new entrants are not shut out and left unable to compete with companies that control both content and distribution. The concern that so many Americans have is not just about their jobs and the prices they're paying, but as my father, should he be alive right now, would be concerned about less movies and less original story making. We have such a vibrant entertainment industry. We have an entertainment industry that's the envy of the world and in fact shapes the world. I want to make sure that everything we're doing is protecting what is so profoundly American: freedom, the fact that workers are treated fairly, that consumers have choice, that competition exists. I urge federal enforcers to review this merger fairly and without political bias, without a president bringing his personality and his political opportunism to bear. I think what the American people deserve is to see our laws, as conceived by previous generations, enforced justly and thoroughly. I look forward to hearing from the witnesses, and again, I thank them for being here.
Thank you, Ranking Member Booker, and your what you offered will be admitted to the record without objection. The Senate Antitrust Subcommittee is, of course, a subcommittee of the Senate Judiciary Committee. We're grateful to have the chairman of the full Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Grassley, here with us, and we'll now turn to him for his opening statement.
Thank you. Every seat in this hearing room is filled, which speaks to the great interest in this issue, and it also speaks to maybe some of the controversy with the issue. This committee is interested in this because we want to make sure the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission does its job of oversight on antitrust. So I thank Chairman Lee and Ranking Member Booker for holding today's hearing on this proposed Netflix Warner Brothers transaction. We all know that America pioneered the film industry, from Hollywood musicals to John Wayne westerns and the rise of modern television. Families still enjoy watching shows together, and it remains an very important part of our culture. But how people watch these productions has changed quickly. The proposed transaction this committee will focus on today would combine Netflix, a leading subscription streaming platform, with Warner Brothers studio assets and HBO Max, another streaming service. This proposed merger could affect prices and choices. Congress enacted the antitrust laws to protect competition and consumers. The Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission must apply those laws using a neutral, evidence-based approach, and Congress has an oversight role to play, and that's why we're here today. Opponents warn that this deal could reduce head-to-head competition in subscription streaming and lead to higher prices or less innovation. Families in my state of Iowa and across the country already juggle multiple subscriptions, and they deserve real competition that keeps prices in check. Opponents also caution that a combined firm could limit access to popular content, limit licensing options, and make it harder for rivals to emerge and compete. Theater owners worry about shorter release windows and fewer wide theatrical releases, which could harm neighborhood cinemas, those they employ, and affect local economies. Competition in this sector doesn't only depend on who has the most subscribers. High-quality franchisees and libraries can shape competition by affecting what rivals are able to license, and also affects what choices consumers ultimately have. Control of both a large platform and a deep library of films and shows can affect the bargaining power across the industry. So I say regulators ought to examine those dynamics very carefully. The companies will, of course, argue this transaction will improve quality, expand distribution, and create efficiencies that help them invest more in content. Those claims deserve fair scrutiny. Any claimed benefit must result from the merger itself, be verifiable, and likely make content available to more families. Further, and importantly, merger review shouldn't be used as a strategy to keep a company from moving forward for years by limiting its ability to pursue lawful alternatives while market conditions continue to change. So I encourage our antitrust regulators to carefully scrutinize this transaction to ensure that competition is not undermined and to make sure that consumers are protected. So I thank all the witnesses today for their testimony, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks so much, Mr. Chairman. The Ranking Member Durbin, the Ranking Member on the Judiciary Committee, has a conflict. Will be here later, so we'll be able to hear from him in due course when he arrives. Now I'm going to introduce our two witnesses for today. We've got Mr. Ted Sarantos, who's the co-chairman and executive officer of Netflix, and we've got Mr. Bruce Campbell, the chief revenue and strategy officer at Warner Brothers Discovery. If the two witnesses will please rise and raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give to the subcommittee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. Let the record reflect that all witnesses answered in the affirmative, and thanks again for being here today. We'll now hear your opening statements. Mr. Sarantos, we'll start with you, and please begin with your opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Booker, members of the subcommittee. Really my honor to be here today. A combined Netflix and Warner Brothers will strengthen the American entertainment industry, preserve choice and value for consumers, and create opportunities for creators. I'm happy to answer all the questions about this deal. I thought it might be a little helpful to spend a few minutes to talk a bit about myself and about the company. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. I was the son of a union electrician and a stay-home mom. They were too young to have 5 kids, but they did, and the house was crazy. So I found a lot of comfort in front of screens, either ducking into the theater, get out of the Arizona heat, or parking myself in front of a TV, which I've did for an embarrassing amount of time. As a teenager, one of my first jobs was working in a local video store. And it was behind that counter that I learned so much about the importance of stories. I watched people roam around the store, reading the backs of boxes, desperately asking strangers for reviews, trying to figure out what to watch. And I figured out that I had a pretty good memory for these movies and these titles and these directors, and I could help people find movies they otherwise would have missed. And it felt great to help them. Home entertainment and the video store gave consumers value, choice, and control. But you had to do the distribution by yourself. You had to drive back and forth to the store. That experience started a chain of events for me that led me to Netflix, which at the time had a couple hundred employees and was stuffing envelopes and using the US mail to send DVDs around the country. It solved the distribution burden for consumers, broadened choice, and deepened value. No matter where you lived, you had access to nearly every TV show and every movie ever made. But you had to stand around waiting by the mailbox to rent them and return them. So in the late 1990s, we saw how the internet was about to change entertainment as we know it today. So we built the technology to stream shows and films. Finally, fans had access to thousands of choices with total control of how and when to watch them, and at a tremendous value relative to TV. Over a decade ago, we began programming our own programming, like House of Cards and Stranger Things and The Crown, and movies like The Irishman and Marriage Story, Red Notice. Netflix productions have already created more than 155,000 American jobs, contributed $225 billion to the US economy. We have filmed in all 50 states. While other media companies have been cutting back their content spending, we have increased ours. If you're wondering if we're in this for the long haul, we're spending $1 billion right now to transform the old Fort Monmouth military base in New Jersey into a state-of-the-art production facility, revitalizing the local economy there. We also export American stories to the world. About the only place you won't find Netflix is China, because they censor us and block us. With Warner Brothers, we're going to create more economic growth and create more value for consumers. Warner Brothers' assets are very different from ours. They have a century of iconic IP, they have a world-class theatrical distribution business, and their studios produce and license TV shows to other networks and other streamers. We plan to operate those businesses largely as they are today. Netflix and Warner Brothers both have streaming services, but they are very complementary. In fact, 80% of HBO Max subscribers also subscribe to Netflix. We will give consumers more content for less. So this is not a typical media merger where you end up with what's called the Noah's Ark problem, 2 of everything. We're buying a company that has assets that we do not, and we will keep investing in Warner Brothers. We will preserve one of the 5 major studios in Hollywood. We'll support theaters by releasing those movies with traditional 45-day windows. And we'll keep growing the American entertainment industry. Let's be clear, TV and film have never been more competitive than they are today. And this deal will not change that. Our goal is to win the moment of truth. That's when Americans sit on their couch, pick up their remote control, and decide what to watch. That's where we compete. Today, consumers can easily choose between broadcast and cable like CBS and so many other networks, and streamers like Netflix, Disney+, HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount+, Tubi. And that also includes deep-pocketed tech companies who are trying to run away with the television business. Companies like Google's YouTube, Amazon Prime Video, and Apple. If you look at streaming alone, YouTube is the #1 platform for viewing time. They have NFL football, they have an exclusive deal for the Oscars, they have a deal with the BBC to produce original programming. Some of their creators have bigger budgets than typical Hollywood television shows. YouTube is not just cat videos anymore. YouTube is TV. This explains why Netflix, with all of our success, are only about 9% of TV viewing time in the US. With Warner Brothers, we'll be about 10%. This deal keeps one of the most iconic Hollywood studios healthy and competitive. Warner and Netflix together will create value for consumers, more opportunities for the creative community, and more American jobs. Thank you so much, and I do look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sarandos. We'll turn now to Mr. Campbell.